All right, welcome back to Always Adaptive. My name is Randall James. I'm a strength and a running coach with 11 years of experience, and today we are publicly responding to some comments. These are comments from various videos that were either questions that people asked, or they were just generally negative comments from people that just didn't like the video that I made. Whatever it is, we're going to respond because I think sometimes it's nice to answer some of the things that other people might also be thinking, but too lazy or too shy to comment. I know there have been times where I had a question about something and I comment and the creator never responds when I was sitting there waiting with bated breath. It's really disappointing. It really is. So I didn't want to make that same mistake. But even if a creator does answer, I view the comments similarly to getting in a text argument with your girlfriend or boyfriend. What you say never really comes out the right way, and it's hard to convey the idea properly. So I thought, why not answer these in a long form video where I can expand on ideas and provide more evidence for why I believe some of the things I believe. But if this is your first time here, welcome. I release a new video every single week, and this channel is basically just my way of getting the research in the topics I'm interested in out of my head and into a creative outlet. But with that out of the way, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button. I appreciate you. On to the video. So I'm going to read the comment out loud, and then I'll give my rebuttal to it. Let the drama commence. Danger Noodle 2868 says, the kettlebell can absolutely be used for hypertrophy, and there are definitely people on the internet who argue that you can do it for that. If you go heavy enough with doubles and go for the Olympic lifts for volume and with progression, then you'll get muscle. Whether that's enough muscle for you depends on your goal. I'm happy to sacrifice on maximizing hypertrophy to get the other benefits that the kettlebell gets as well, such as being convenient, which helps me to stay more consistent because my long commute doesn't allow me to get into the gym. So this was a comment on one of my Dr. Mike videos where in that video I said that the kettlebell swing should be used for power development or cardio. It is not a good hypertrophy tool and should not be used as such. I also said I don't know anyone who uses it as a hypertrophy tool. I stand by these comments. Will it build some muscle? Potentially, especially if someone is new. But will it build anywhere near the same amount of muscle as a heavy RDL or other hinge equivalent bodybuilding exercise? Absolutely not. There is no mechanical tension until the stretch shortening cycle at the very bottom of the swing. And even at that point, it's very brief. Now, my comments weren't to say that kettlebells are not useful for building muscle, just kettlebell swings. Yes, you can build muscle using only kettlebells. Quite a bit of muscle, actually. I don't, however, think that kettlebells are optimal for building muscle. For just doing the compound lifts, squats, overhead press, rows, lunges, they're great. But you will almost always be limited by the shape of the implement and unable to target various useful angles for hypertrophy. For example, try to do lateral raises with kettlebells. Try to do reverse flies. Shit, even bicep curls are different. You're unable to do supinated curls, which, as I'm sure most of you know, actually hit the biceps brachii harder than neutral or pronated curls. When you can't supinate your grip, the brachialis is actually the dominant elbow flexor, which is deep to the biceps brachii. You'll still use the biceps, but for those that want maximal muscle growth to both heads of the bicep, it's very below optimal. So on the whole, kettlebells are just too awkward to allow someone that takes bodybuilding seriously to be able to bring up specific weak points with hypertrophy training. I'll say it one more time, though, because I know someone's out there fuming. We're talking about optimal, not possible. It is possible, just not optimal. Moving on, Met Ranger XD4BT says, Pavel Tsatsouline on Andrew Huberman's podcast said that Russian research showed that dual farmer carries with heavy weights are not good as they cause spinal compression. One hand at a time, though, is very good, so that's how I'm doing it from now on. So this is actually a really interesting claim. I'm a big fan of Pavel Tsatsouline and Andrew Huberman, and honestly, I'd never heard of any actual data on farmer carries and spinal compression. I went on the hunt. I was hunting for any tidbit of data that I could dig up on this. Here's what I found. A study titled Low Back Loads with Walking and Carrying, comparing the load carried in one hand or in both hands, actually found the exact opposite of what most people assume. Carrying a weight in one hand instead of both hands actually doubled spinal compression forces in the lower back. When participants carried 30 kilos in one hand, compression forces in the lumbar spine shot up over 2,800 newtons. But when they split that exact same total weight into two hands, the compression dropped down to around 1,570 newtons. That's a 44% reduction. And here's the crazy part. Even when they doubled the total load carrying 30 kilos in each hand, 60 kilos total, spinal compression was still lower than carrying just 30 kilos on one side. The takeaway is clear from this study. Balancing the load between both hands dramatically reduces the stress on your lower back. And that makes sense to me. Managing forces in the frontal and the sagittal planes make it more difficult than just sagittal. Now, that's not to say that suitcase carries or unilateral carry variations aren't good. This is just in response to the comment. I think unilateral carries, while according to this study, do create more compression in the lower back, they're still a great way to challenge someone's rotational and lateral stability. I use single arm overhead carries on every single push days. It's one of my favorite exercises, and I highly recommend it. Javier Rodriguez 4218 says, what about the instability of gymnastics rings? You can't say gymnasts don't grow muscle. This was in response to another Dr. Mike video where I actually agreed with Mike when he was talking about the Bosu ball being one of the worst exercises. And this is actually a great question from Javier. But what about gymnastic rings? Can I say gymnasts don't grow muscle? No, I can't say that, nor was that ever my claim about the Bosu ball. No one said that you can't grow muscle using a Bosu ball, just that it's not optimal. Let me put it this way. Can you squat the same amount of weight doing a barbell back squat on a Bosu ball as you can on flat ground? The answer is no. No, you can't. Too many resources would be devoted to balance, and so inherently, because the load would be greater on flat ground, that is the superior method for building muscle. The stimulus is better. It's not even close. Now let's try this example with the rings. If I wanted to build my chest and all I had access to was push-ups and dips, would I be able to isolate my chest more with regular dips on bars or doing dips on gymnastic rings? Well, those that have used gymnastic rings will tell you you'll get far less dips on the rings than you would on the dip bars. It really is unbelievable how much harder it is to do dips on rings due to the stability component. So what does that actually mean? That means less reps and less isolation of the pectoralis muscle through meaningful range of motion due to stabilizer muscles in the rotator cuff and overall shoulder girdle taking up some of the load. Now, I still think gymnastics rings are an amazing tool for improving joint stability and getting stronger. This is just in regards to hypertrophy, and it's not to say that you cannot achieve a hypertrophy stimulus, just that it's more difficult. So yes, gymnasts can build muscle, and regular folk can build muscle on Bosu balls. Call me EJ9106 says, I'm a simple man. I see Ronnie. I like it. For those that were curious about my setup, this drape that I have on the wall, that's Ronnie the Witch from the game Elden Ring. He has a quest line in the game that changes the ending, and I and many others thought it was just a great way to finish the game. But in general, if you haven't played Elden Ring, it is a must play. I've beaten it far too many times than I care to admit. It's basically got game of this generation title from me. Anyways, KGN4TNP says, look, is it a weight? Does it place the muscle under tension? Can't you work to failure? If the answer is yes, then it's an effective training stimulus. You influencers kill me. A cinder block is a training stimulus, so is a kettlebell. This back and forth is stupid and only good for making you guys money. It's not stupid. What is the internet for? Really think about that for a second. What do you Google? The best way to make sourdough bread, the fastest way to change my car's oil, the best way to unclog a drain. Does that ring a bell? What about the best way to build muscle, the fastest way to build strength? We as humans want the best and easiest solutions to the problems we're facing. We don't search for the most mediocre way of stimulating hypertrophy. So when people like Dr. Mike and I get into disagreements, I think one, it helps us refine our arguments and our thinking, but two, the viewer or the consumer benefits. There are millions of people that consume Mike's content that now think kettlebell swings are stupid. I'm here to call that out and say that while they are not good for everything, there are things that they are certainly good for. And I'm here to bring the science to bear. GhostDagger3588 says, I think so many people do bodybuilding because it's a lot easier than athletic training. Not easy, but just easier. When I started training, I strictly did bodybuilding. And when I would go to do athletic movements, I was so weak. Took me a long time to realize that bodybuilding is about show first, not performance. Yes, bodybuilding is about show. In fact, a lot of bodybuilders will completely neglect rotation and lateral flexion to avoid building up their obliques. They think it builds a blocky waist, and they're correct. It does. For their competitions, they need to have a tiny waist and really broad shoulders. I will say, though, a lot of exercise modalities also will not directly translate into athletic training, not just bodybuilding. Having muscle and not practicing athletic movement is no different than having strength and not practicing athletic movement. Let's take someone that has a 1,500-pound total across the big three, squat, bench, and deadlift. That's a very strong dude. But if they don't ever practice cross drills, agility ladder work, jumps, med ball throws, sprints, then when they go to do those things, it's going to be very awkward and weird looking. This is said principle, specific adaptations to impose demands. I've said it in many other videos. I'm going to keep saying it. Your body adapts to specificity. So yes, I agree with the commenter, but I don't think we should just bash bodybuilding. Well, I don't think we should bash anyone. I think bodybuilders are plenty strong. I think everyone should have well-balanced programs that check as many boxes as possible: strength, hypertrophy, power and athleticism, and sequencing. These next few comments I'm going to read together because they're all essentially saying the same thing. Michael Roach says, he is a bodybuilder, ... Nick Jennison says, Mike is a bodybuilder. Of course he's unathletic. He doesn't train for athleticism. That'd be like someone criticizing the host of this video for not looking like a stage-ready bodybuilder. D. Andreev says, why would you expect Dr. Mike to have a good jump or any athletic movements? He's not an athlete. He is a bodybuilder, and he even has said that he does not train for health. The same way you can jump and run better than him, he has like 3 times the muscle mass as you and can bench, deadlift, and squat more than you. I mean, have you seen his overhead press? He's pretty strong. And Showkiller99 says, you have to take Mike's age and size into his running. For 300 pounds of I lift heavy things, it's not bad, and the other guy ending up in Snap City is not helping your case. Mike is not athletic, and I can't recall him ever saying he was. So your vid looks like something he would do to prove he was right. So look, the general idea of these comments, and believe me, there were more, is that Dr. Mike Israetel is a bodybuilder and never claimed to be athletic. And so why apply the standards from my jumping and running video to him? Well, if a creator is going to call an exercise the absolute worst exercise and not specify for what, he has now opened the doors for interpretation. If his video title was the absolute worst exercises for hypertrophy, then we would not be having this conversation. Furthermore, Mike explicitly gives examples of exercises that are better than the kettlebell swing for power. The second he said the word power, it was on. The kettlebell swing is an amazing exercise for power development. It's also one of the best ways to teach someone the basics of jumping mechanics without them ever leaving the ground. My point was simple. Had Mike actually valued the swing, his own performance may have looked a little bit better. Think about it. What if I were to say that running is the worst way to build endurance, and then I go out and can't even finish a mile? So if Mike wants to just pretend, oh, I'm just a bodybuilder, then stay in your lane and don't critique other exercises. That's whole point is power development. Kettlebell swings are not a bodybuilding exercise. Phew. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? I like engaging with you all in the comments, so please feel free to let me know your real thoughts or ask questions. I'm thinking about doing one of these responding to the comments style videos once a quarter or so. You never know. Your comment could end up being on here. Or shit, it might even end up being an entire video topic if you make me think deeply enough about it that I'm willing to put my research hat on. But give me some other ideas for content like this. I'm still new to YouTube. It's still been less than a year, and so I don't know all the cool and hip video types that some of the other creators like to put out. But that's it for me. This was a shorter video, but I appreciate you coming and hanging out and watching for a little bit. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. Once again, my name is Randall James, and this is Always Adaptive, a business born from the idea that you are always adapting. Literally, right this moment, whether you're sitting or you're standing, I'm standing. This is an input that my body is adapting to right this moment. So control your inputs, and you can control your life. Thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next one. Stay adaptive.